Hi folks, welcome to Bullet Points. Thanks for finding our channel. We're going to do the history of repeating rifles for the next 5 videos that we've got going on. I got my buddy Colby here. He is well versed in the Winchester 73. We're going to talk from the Henry 1860 to the 66 to the 73 to the 92 and the Savage Model 99. So stick around. You'll enjoy the series. We've got a little shooting in there, and we've got a good history lesson too. Just 1 second here. Hey guys, today we're talking about the 1860 Henry lever action. This was really the rifle that started off repeating firearms. There were other models before this. They were very expensive and they weren't real reliable. So when Benjamin Tyler Henry started tinkering around with the volcanic rifle that was patented in 1842, he's made some significant design changes. One of those big changes was creating a cartridge that would hold the bullet, as opposed to Volcanic's method. They actually kind of drilled out the backside of a bullet and put gunpowder up into that, and that was it had some significant limitations. Obviously they can't put a whole lot of powder in there, so by creating that cartridge he was able to pack more powder in it and run a smaller bullet and ultimately make a much more powerful rifle. Henry did some other really neat things. Like one of the way that this feeds its rounds is you have a spring in here that pushes down the rounds into the receiver. You have to push this all the way up, lock it into position, and then rotate the end of the barrel. There we go. Once you did that, you had a space in this tube for 15 rounds. There was a Civil War Confederate general that referred to the Henry repeater as that damn Yankee rifle. You loaded on Sunday and you shot all week. Considering that most everyone else was out there with either a single shot rifle or a muzzle loader, this was a huge leap in technology. The amount of power that you could put downrange without having to pause and reload was just incredible. If you can imagine going from the Army standard was 3 shots per minute, and all of a sudden you had 15 rounds that you could put down range in less than a minute. That's a significant jump when you're getting shot at by somebody who's only got 1 round at a time. Henry also did some other fun things, like their sights on this, because they were still relatively low powered compared to what our modern ammunition does today. You had a flip up sight, and on that flip up sight there's different numbers engraved. So as you were trying to reach out to different ranges that were a little further out, you would slide your notch sight up, and that would force you to tilt the rifle into a arced position. Instead of directly shooting at someone, you're now lobbing bullets over to them. Very impressive fix for a limited range rifle or limited power rifle. The Army bought about 2,000 of them towards the end of the Civil War. They probably did see a significant amount of service, but the interesting thing that I found was private soldiers would go out and buy these. They cost $42, which was a whole lot of money. So friends and family would all pool money together so that their soldier could have a repeating rifle as opposed to a muzzleloader. That accounted for about 7,000 more rifles that went into service, not paid for by the government, not paid for by Congress or anyone else. Those were personally purchased firearms that soldiers took into battle. Not something that we see happening today. After the Civil War was over, this repeating rifle was kind of limited for frontier application. A lot of trappers and hunters that went west did carry them, but they also carried a heavier, higher power muzzleloader as well. This was more for a defensive and maybe camp meat type gun, whereas the muzzleloaders were for larger predators and elk and deer and bigger game of that nature. So one of the most iconic pieces about the Henry is the brass receiver. Both the brass receiver and the fact that it does not have a wood forestock or forestock of any kind. The brass, though, was so important because it was hard enough to handle the pressures that were generated in the breech, but it was soft enough that people could work it rapidly. During their production run from 1860 to 1866, about 14,000 rifles were made, which at the time was pretty significant when you figure that each one of these was hand built. This is obviously not an original. This is a reproduction that I was able to get a hold of, and it does a wonderful job of firing, and it's just fun to shoot. The downsides to the Henrys there were a couple of them. One of them was the 44 rimfire cartridge. Though more powerful than the volcanic cartridge, it still lacked significant kinetic energy at further ranges. The other downside was the way that the magazine was designed. This tube-fed magazine, because you had to be able to slide that spring back and forth with your exterior control arm, was prone to getting dirt and gravel stuck into it. When that happened, it obviously wasn't going to feed your next round. Even if this thing was completely clean, one of the things that the shooter had to get used to was not holding it like this. You have to hold it while keeping a gap so you can let this follower move through. If you didn't do that, then you would actually stop feeding rounds. Those were the downsides, and they were addressed very quickly as New Haven Arms was purchased by Winchester and renamed into Winchester Repeating Arms. We'll talk about them when we talk about the 1866. Please remember to like and subscribe, ring the bell, drop a comment, share our videos. Thanks for watching Ammo and Oils.